Welcome back to Everyone Has a Story, where we share true tales from everyday life. Today's story is about the fear of being found, of secret identities of people hidden in plain sight. Let's peek behind this curtain and reveal their secrets. In the time after the Revolutionary War and the rapid growth of our great new nation, there was still a lot of fear and concern between the original people and the new Americans. Conflicts continued to erupt, and there was a great deal of distrust on both sides. In the old Northwest Territory, thousands upon thousands of young American men, strong of body and dedicated to civilize this vast wilderness, had journeyed west to find their fortune. Many had worked hard to get along with these new neighbors, and others quietly moved westward beyond the Mississippi, and yet others stood firm to protect their land. These times were called the Indian Wars, and it was a most trying time for everyone concerned. After the War of 1812 and the Indian Removal Act of 1830, most indigenous people had been forcibly removed to the reservations in Oklahoma Territory. Others married white folk and established farms next to their new neighbors, or as some did, head deep into the hollers or up high on the mountain. No matter which they chose, if they stayed east of the Mississippi, they were subject to being removed. When a family was removed, typically their properties would be sold to pay for the military escort that transported them to the reservations. Usually they were only allowed to take a wagon or two, and with what belongings they could stuff into it, and an oxen or horse needed for the journey. Perhaps a cow, a pig, and some chickens. If they avoided being removed, most assimilated as best they could, assuming European names. You're always looking over your shoulder waiting for the stranger with the long guns who would be coming to take you away. This was a common feeling. Our Indian family on my daddy's side had assimilated well, and most strangers would think they were just another tanned redneck farmer along the river. We were mixed bloods, half-breeds, known locally as simply the Waters family. As my elders shared, there was an ever-present level of paranoia. If the government found that they were Indians, surely they'd be removed to the Oklahoma Territory. That not only applied to the core family, but to their cousins as well. This wasn't an old wives' tale, but it was a reality. Because of their Native American heritage, they were considered not to be real Americans, and not at least until the 1920s when Congress finally enacted the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924, granting citizenship to all American indigenous people born in the United States. However, the right to vote was governed by the state's laws until 1957, and some states barred their right to vote right up until then. Who would want to be rounded up and told to pack a few belongings and move away from your homeland, whose earth contained the dust of your ancestors? This was a constant and perplexing problem. How could they avoid being removed and secure a future for their children? As our family lore goes, someone learned about a king in Ireland named King Michael Waters. He was the hereditary king of the island of Sligo, where their inhabitants were referred to as the Black Irish, descended from the Celts who had not been conquered by the Vikings. They were darker, with black hair and brown eyes. From that description, my elders decided they might look just like Irish. This is based on nothing more than a brief description in a newspaper. Would this ruse be enough to avoid the prying eyes of government officials? Well, a plan was discussed, and all agreed that from that time forward, the native Waters family would be, by the simple act of adding an extra T to their name, Waters, instead of Waters, would become Irish royalty, descendants of the illustrious mythical King Michael Waters. Truth be told, we do have a fair amount of Irish heritage, and the Duffys and the Gillelans from the Republic of Ireland, and most of the Scots-Irish McKees from County Ulster, although neither were from County Sligo, and nary a drop of blood kinship to King Michael. But the illusion was successful for 2 generations. Most no one knew that our grandparents had changed their name to protect us. I shared this once with my dad when we were sitting near the tribal great house, and he was astounded. He'd never put the Irish and the Shawnee description together. This is just one of the many stories about how America's first people stayed on their hereditary land. It was not to escape the mass removal to the concentration camps, as we now call reservations, but more it was because of the solemn obligation to take care of the graves of the ancestors who had come before them. We are taught that when the last person forgets where the ancestors are buried, their souls will wander searching for the relatives who had forgotten them. Like Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story, you'd never have known this if I hadn't shared it with you. Make time to visit the grave sites of your ancestors if you know where they are. If not, locate them. It doesn't matter whether you have Indian heritage, Native American heritage, or European heritage, or whatever. It matters that you are the total sum of all the ancestors that came before you. You might find that you feel an obligation to ensure that they too have not yet been forgotten, that they are still honored responsibly. Do you feel it? If so, do what's right. Do you have a similar story about a family secret kept from the outside world? A secret that held families together? If so, please leave it in the comments below. We'd love to have a conversation with you about it. And if you've enjoyed this video, we'd sure appreciate a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you enjoy content like this and would like to be notified when we have new stories. They usually come out every Friday afternoon. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you the next time on Everyone Has a Story, True Tales from Everyday Life.